Well, the French-led war continues unabated in the West African nation of Mali. Reports coming out of the country suggest that French-led forces have been locked in battle with local fighters in Mali's northern mountains over the past 10 days. Scores of people have been killed in the region. We don't know who exactly the victims are, but a lot of civilians have already died in the fighting between the two sides. Now, the French-led war in the landlocked country began in January. Locals are complaining of a deteriorating humanitarian situation there. Well, let me switch over to Detroit, joined by editor Pan-African Newswire, Mr. Abayomi Azikiwe. Thank you so much for being with us. In the beginning, they basically said, Paris said they were going to be in and out very quickly, and now we're looking at 3 months, and it is raging. What is that a sign of? Did they misplan, or are things going actually to plan for them?
It was a very disingenuous proposition initially when French forces intervened in Mali on January the 11th. It was quite obvious that the resistance would be somewhat formidable inside the country. Now, with the intervention of not only France, but also allied forces from various African states, it has just exacerbated the conflict inside the country. They initially, as you mentioned, said it would only be a few weeks. They said they would pull out next month. Now they're saying that they're not going to pull out until July. They also mentioned just this past week that there's going to be the development of a so-called rapid response force, which no one really knows exactly what that's going to entail. But it indicates that there's going to be a long-term intervention in the West African state of Mali. And this is going to be disastrous, not only for the people in Mali itself, but also throughout the entire region of West Africa, as well as spilling over into North Africa, because we saw what happened in January in Algeria, and this was clearly related to the French military intervention in Mali.
From the perspective of Paris, with their economic pressure that they're going through in France, how can they even afford a war like this unless perhaps they are planning on taking control of some of the natural resources there?
Well, this is obviously fueling the intervention by France, Britain, Germany, as well as the United States and Canada in Africa. All of these countries are in dire economic straits. In France, the unemployment rate is skyrocketing. The national deficit is also rising very fast. And we see the same situation here inside the United States with the sequester of the U.S. Congress and the fact that $85 billion has been cut from the national budget just overnight. And we're in a situation right now where we're going to be facing a deeper economic recession. This, of course, fuels the Pentagon as well as Wall Street to intervene in these states in Africa in an effort to try to shore up their losses on the continent. But the downside to it is that they're going to be met by fierce resistance on the part of the forces that they have targeted inside of Mali. And they're also going to inflame other political forces inside the country. We've seen the obliteration of dozens of Chadian troops in the Adreas de Afogos mountains in the northeast of Mali on the border with Algeria. There's going to be more casualties, and it's just a very bad situation that these imperialist states are placing their own people as well as the peoples of Africa.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us, editor Pan-African Newswire, Mr. Abayomi Azikiwe out of Detroit.